Hello students, welcome you all. We were discussing about structure of an atom. So today's topics are types of spectrum, emission, absorption and difference between emission and absorption spectrum. Before going into the topic, let us discuss about what is an spectrum. Spectrum is a band of colors. For example, rainbow. Rainbow consists of 7 colors and it is called a spectrum. Now let us discuss about what types of spectrums are there. First one is emission spectrum. When the light emitted directly from a source and passed through the prism and examined it through the spectrometer, the emission spectrum is thus obtained. Meaning is when a hot gas emits certain radiations and that radiation when allowed to pass through prism and the transmitted light is seen through the spectrometer, you will be getting a emission spectrum. On the other hand, absorption spectrum, when the light emitted from a source is made to pass through an absorbing substance and the transmitted light is seen through the spectrometer, you will be getting a absorption spectrum. So here we introduced a cool gas in between the source and the spectrometer. So this is the difference between emission and absorption spectrum. There is one more term, continuous spectrum is there. When the light is passed through the prism and seen through the spectrometer, the band of color thus obtained is called continuous spectrum. Simple example of continuous spectrum is rainbow. Rainbow is the example of continuous spectrum. You can see picture representation of a continuous spectrum. You can see here white light is passed through the prism and you will be getting the colors, continuous band of colors, and merges all the colors merge with each other, and such kind of spectrum is called continuous spectrum. Speciality of continuous spectrum is here all the colors will be merged into each other without any gap. Such a kind of spectrum is called continuous spectrum. Here once again a picture representation of emission and absorption spectrum is shown here. In emission spectrum you can see a hot gas. Hot gas will emit certain radiations and then that radiations are seen through the spectrometer and you will be getting colored lines which are separated by dark spaces. So on the other hand, if you see absorption spectrum, high density hot matter will emit certain radiation. In between that radiation, you will place cold gas. Now cold gas will absorb certain radiation with a particular frequency, and the transmitted light when seen through the spectrometer, you will be getting dark colored lines over the continuous spectrum. Such a kind of spectrum is known as absorption spectrum. Why the name absorption is been given? Because when the radiation emitted from the source is passed through a cold gas. Now cold gas molecule will absorb certain radiation of particular frequency. On that place only this dark lines has been appeared over the continuous spectrum. So such a kind of spectrum is known as absorption spectrum. Here is the difference between emission and absorption spectrum, which is very important. So first one is here, it is obtained when excited substance are observed with the spectroscope. That means excited substance will emit certain radiation, and that radiations when passed through the prism and seen through the spectroscope, you will be getting emission spectrum. On the other hand, absorption spectrum, it is obtained when the white light is passed through a substance. Substance is absorbing substance, it can be gas or a solution, and the transmitted light is analyzed through the spectroscope and the spectrum thus obtained is called absorption spectrum. Second difference, emission spectrum is bright colored lines separated by dark spaces. On the other hand, absorption spectrum it is a continuous spectrum with very few dark lines representing absorption of light of particular frequency. Link is also been given below. You can refer it and see the difference between emission and absorption spectrum. Now let us check your understandings. Pause the video, do this question and check what you understood. Thank you very much for watching.